Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Turning Point Podcast. My name is Ben, and we're doing something a little bit different this episode. Lewin's not here. He's off. He's away. He's gallivanting around the countryside or whatever he's doing. I don't know. But so we thought we'd get a guest in this episode. You may remember him from our Last of Us Part 2 episode. It's Jacob. Welcome back, man. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Keeping busy. Got a lot going on right now. A lot going on, but I'm doing good. I'm on my second coffee for today, so I didn't get much sleep last night, and then you were coming over so we could do this, and then I realized I had to get up and instead of sleep in. So that's it's good. But no, I'm apart from all of that, I'm doing well. What have you been up to lately? You been working, being busy, doing the things?
Yeah, doing the things and getting money for it. That sounds very good to me.
Yeah, I've been doing that as well. I am actually, so I've been doing a lot of like freelance editing. So like I work at my retail job like 3 days a week, and then I've been doing like a few days a week at my old film school, editing a bunch of stuff for them. So I've been doing that for the past few months.
Very good.
So that's actually a pretty good little bit of extra income, which is nice. Especially now that my retail job is no longer eligible for JobKeeper, which means my fortnightly income has been slashed in half.
Oh no!
And I'm like, fuck. So that's been a bit of fun, but I'm getting a bit of extra income from then, and I've also been working on a few other gigs. I've got a short film coming up, so
very good.
I'm busy, and I'm trying to, in all of that, make videos for my YouTube channel, and it's just not working out for me. I'm just too busy. But I quit uni because I was like, I'm not doing uni. I'm done with this. I'm just way too busy for it, and I'd rather work and get money, It's all about their monies.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you been up to anything interesting besides, working?
No, the daily grind, 5 days a week, that kind of stuff. My JobKeeper thing was discontinued too, but I was like, well, I haven't had a day off in about 6 months, so maybe it doesn't bother me so much.
I know that feeling. I worked myself to the point where I was burnt out that I just had to take last week off, like completely off. And like, I mean, I was, because I was hoping it was a good time to record this episode last week. But then you hadn't finished Avengers yet, so I was like, okay, cool. Well, we'll just push it to this week. But it was nice taking a bit of a week off. It was just, I just kind of needed. Like, I did still do some work, by the way. Like, when I say a week off, that's not true at all, because I still worked at my retail job, and I actually was working on a freelance gig. But I decided to tell the film school gig, I was like, look, I'm not coming in this week. I just need, a few days just to kind of chill and kind of regroup and get myself back. But now I've got a list of things that I need to edit for them, so I can now kind of plan out how my editing works alongside my other projects, so it kind of works out for me. But it's been busy. And apart from that, I've been doing a bit of gaming.
Indeed.
That's how it kind of goes. It's been I probably should say what we're talking about this episode.
That sounds good.
That sounds like a good idea. So we are talking about Square Enix's Crystal Dynamics Marvel's The Avengers. Or Avengers, whatever the fucking game's called. That's what we're talking about this episode.
I think it's officially titled Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah. And so we're going to be talking about that. We've been playing that. I forced myself to play it. It came out the same day as Tony Hawk did, and I didn't play it for several days.
that is the exact reason why I spent all of last week playing the game instead of a month ago, because I'm like, my brother will be buying Marvel's Avengers, and I will be buying Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Yeah. I wonder which one I'm going to be playing for the foreseeable future. A game that relishes in when games were actually good, or a game that kind of tips towards the modern inconveniences that plague today's society. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll like to actually have fun with my games that I play. So I'll play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 for dozens of hours before I touch Avengers.
Yeah, no, I played heaps. Like, I haven't even, finished the campaigns or anything for Tony Hawk's. Like, for me, Tony Hawk's kind of just a game I play for a bit of fun. I kind of just go into the free skate mode and just fuck around and that. But I have been playing through Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, and I'm almost finished that. So I'm kind of getting there, but I've also been trying out like a lot of like user levels, like the custom levels and stuff, and that's been kind of a bit of fun. And recently, when I've been playing it, I've been obsessed with I've been doing like the time trial on on Warehouse. So I've been trying to finish Warehouse as quick as possible. Because I'm not a Tony Hawk pro. Like I barely know how to do most of the tricks. I just kind of press a bunch of buttons and hope for the best, really. But you know, I've seen that level. Like I've looked at that leaderboard, and like that level's been completed in like that time trial thing's speed
it's
run.
Like 30 seconds.
It's like 30 seconds. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that in 30 seconds? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? But like, I think the best time I've been able to do is, I think it was like 3 minutes and like 6-7 seconds, something like that. I think that's the best I've done.
That sounds like something I could do. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's kind of shit. I'm like very, very low on the leaderboard with that, but I also don't really care that much. I just want to see if I can finish it as quick as I can, and it's been fun.
Yeah, I've got 100% all goals and medals for 1 and 2. I haven't touched because there's 3 menus when you click on tours. There's the first game, second game, and then there's like the free skate and time trials and stuff like that. Haven't touched that 3rd one. But I've made a created skater who, just like all my other fucking video games where you can create your own skater, it doesn't look anything like me.
The I was saying this in the last episode to Lewin. The customization options are a bit shit.
The
basics are good, but it's like very like it's not like Destiny basic. But you know, it's like it could be a lot better than what it is. And when I say outfit option, and when I say like customization options, I mainly mean outfit options. But you know, like
the outfit options are pretty good. I thought it was just the face thing, because they get you to choose from preset models, and then you can choose your skin color, ethnicity, hair color, eye color, that kind of stuff. And it's like none of these models look anything like me in the slightest, but at least that's better than saying, oh, I can make a character looks just like me, and he looks like a weird, like, botched plastic surgery victim elf man, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, they look odd. It's wild. But yeah, so that's been good. So I'm glad we've both been having a bit of a good time with that. We're not going to talk about Tony Hawk anymore, because we did in the last episode. So if you want to hear us talk about it, and by us I mean me and Lewin, then you can listen to the previous episode where we talk about it.
Very good.
Yeah. But I think we should move on. We should get into it. And we got a bit of news to start us off. First off, once again this year, I find myself planned out the podcast only for it to all turn to shit once again. And that's because No Time to Die was delayed again. Which is interesting because they were like really pushing the promotion for it, and like, you know, like Daniel Craig and like even Billie Eilish and all that were like meant to appear on like talk shows and stuff. And actually Daniel Craig has appeared on what one did he appear on? He appeared on Jimmy Fallon, and he had like an exclusive No Time to Die clip. And I'm like, this is all pointless, you know? Like, why are we doing this? This movie's not coming out till fucking April now. But yeah, no, it's so that's a bit shit. But I get why they're doing it, because everyone's kind of watched what's been kind of going on, you know, like the whole, you know, Tenet was meant to save cinema, and it kind of flopped real hard.
Which is a shame, because I actually was one of the few people who actually went and saw Tenet and thought it was fantastic.
I don't think it's so much the movie itself. I think it's just people are like,
I don't want to go to a public space where you can catch COVID-19. I understand that.
So like, yeah, it's kind of a bit shit that flopped, but also like a lot of the straight to because that's like a big budget movie too. So
well, especially No Time to Die. It's James Bond, for Christ's sakes.
So a lot of people like I mean, like you've got like still a couple of movies coming out. You know, like obviously Disney released New Mutants, but also like that movie's just pure profit for them. So like it doesn't really matter how well New Mutants does, because
or how hard it flops, because they're just like, hey, any dollar's a dollar.
It's nice to see that movie's come out though.
I know.
It's been like what, 4 years?
Yeah, what was it?
3 years, 4 years, something like
I
that.
think it was. I think it was the teaser trailer debuted only like 2 or 3 months after Logan was released in theaters.
Yeah, it was. It was a
I was
while
like,
ago.
oh my god, that's
God, I was still living in Wollongong back then.
yeah,
This was like pre-film school days. What's
Yeah.
going on? We've all grown so much as people since then.
I know.
But that movie's come out, so that's fun. And then but also like people have been watching what's been going on with like the video on demand side of things. You know,
Yep.
Mulan came out on Disney Plus and also flopped. But Mulan is going to, I believe Mulan is going to go to Disney Plus as free
In December, yeah.
at some point, but yeah, that flopped hard as well. So like they and even so, it actually flopped so hard that Disney has said that they have zero plans to release any other films that way moving forward. So like it was a little experiment that didn't go well for them, and especially when you think about what Disney has, they have, you know, like their other big movies, you know, are things like the Marvel movies and like Black Widow and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to take the chance with Marvel movies, so that's why Black Widow was pushed back as well. So
Yeah.
it's just one of these things where movies are just getting pushed back because no studio is confident enough to release them.
Yeah.
Which is shit for No Time to Die, because they've now had, I think, they've had 2 marketing campaigns, which means that there's been 2 lots of marketing budgets, which means now they're going to have to do a 3rd marketing campaign next year,
Yep.
which means we're probably going to get another trailer at some point. And, you know, like, it's going to be wild. I'm looking forward to that movie, though. I'm really excited
Me too,
for,
yeah.
that Bond movie when it eventually comes out. But yeah, it's kind of screwed up the podcast for the rest of the year. So I now have to figure out what to do for the rest of the year because no movies are coming out. The next movie, like the next big movie, because I know a lot of like lower budget movies have still been released, but
Yeah.
like the next big movie to come out, I think, is Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Because I don't know if Free Guy counts as a big movie or not. But that's like the next big movie to come out. I think that's what, like December 25th or December 26th or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It's Christmas, so it'll be interesting to see if that actually releases.
I'd like it to, because I'm sick and tired
We're
of
just
Kevin-
like some movies to come out.
Yes!
Yeah.
But I was so devastated. Did I tell you the story about
No.
A Quiet Place Part 2? Because
Oh, yeah.
that got delayed from September to April, so it's coming out same month as No Time to Die. And
Yeah.
it was pushed from March this year to September, something like less than a week before it was debuts. I reckon it wouldn't shock me one bit if a couple of cinemas actually have the film on their thumb drives or hard drives or something like that, because I actually said, because my brother had watched it as the first one as well, to
I've seen the
set up
first
for it, and we were preparing to watch part 2 the following weekend, and it was literally
Yeah,
a
it
day or
was
2 later. It was like, oh, delayed till September, and I'm like,
Yeah, a lot of these films are also getting delayed like very last minute. Like
Yeah.
I know Wonder Woman was very much ready to come out, and then it was like pushed back.
yeah,
You know, like I think like a week, maybe 2 before it actually was meant to release.
yeah,
It's a bit shit. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, we got video games. So
indeed.
hey, you know,
Yes,
and
sir.
not only that, but there's things to be excited about because we got Mandalorian coming out soon. Mandalorian
Yes.
season 2, which is exciting.
Indeed.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff coming out in terms of like TV worlds.
Yep.
It's just a bit shit because like I saw a post on Twitter yesterday that was talking about, and this is actually going to sort of segue into our news. But I saw a post talking about how, you know, next year's the Resident Evil 25th anniversary. And, you know, they've got, like, you know, the new film, which we'll talk about in a sec. They've got that Infinite Darkness series. They've got Resident Evil 8 coming out. They've got a manga coming out. They've got the live-action Resident Evil series coming out, apparently,
Yeah.
next year, which I don't think they've shot yet. So I
No.
don't know if that's going to come out next year or not. And I don't think the Resident Evil movie is going to come out next year, but, you know, like, whatever. And
We'll
then
see.
they'll-
It might be like a Halloween thing.
yeah, well, that's assuming they shoot it. in time. Like, that's assuming they can shoot it, because like the problem with a lot of films, and this is what I was coming into, is the tweet followed up with, because Tomb Raider launched the exact same year as Resident Evil 1 did, so Tomb Raider also has a 25th anniversary next year, and Square Enix has literally zero plans to celebrate that, which is fine. Like, I don't think a 25th anniversary should be celebrated. I think it should be like every decade is kind of something to celebrate. Like, an in-between is like, well, really? But I mean, 25th is like, I mean, I guess that's a long time. But yeah, but then I'm like, to be fair, a Tomb Raider film was scheduled to come out next year that they haven't shot yet, because in the countries that they were going to shoot in, they can't actually get to shoot in. So like that, the Tomb Raider movie was pushed back to like 2022, because they're planning on shooting it next year now. So I was like, to be fair, like there were things in the works, and like in terms of if you're looking at like the game timeline, like it's usually about a couple of years in between each game, and the last game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, they didn't announce until like 6 months before the game actually came out. So I bet you there's probably going to be some kind of like game announcement next year, because we know for a fact they're working on a 4th reboot game. So I definitely think there'll be a Tomb Raider game coming out next year, I reckon. So I reckon Tomb Raider fans can still, at least take comfort in that. And we were meant to get a film, and obviously that's not happening. It is what it is. But yeah, so that's kind of segues us into... Oh, actually, yeah, no, I'll talk about it in a sec. But that segues us into our Resident Evil news. And that was just recently. The
like
news
2
dropped.
days ago.
Yeah, the news dropped that the Resident Evil Reboot film, produced by Constantine Film, is coming out sometime. But we got a kind of synopsis as well as a cast list, which is interesting.
Yes.
So I'm kind of gonna go through it, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So it's written and directed by Johan Roberts, who all I know he's done is that shark movie.
The 47 meters down movies.
Yeah, that I haven't seen. So I have no comments on him as a director at all, because I literally haven't seen anything he's done.
None of it, to be honest.
But yeah, so he's writing and directing this movie. And it's going to be an adaptation of the first 2 games.
Which is interesting, because they're 2 or 3 months apart.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting. So, like, I think, and this is what, like, a lot of Resident Evil fans are getting excited, because they've definitely said that this is going to be more faithful to the source material.
Yeah.
But they also have said that Raccoon City, this isn't actually confirmed, but it's talking about how, I think the director actually said this. I don't know if I've got the quote here. He wanted to tell... I'll read the quote from him, actually. So he said, "With this movie, I really wanted to go back to the original first 2 games and recreate the terrifying, visceral experience I had when I played them, whilst at the same time telling a grounded human story about a small, dying American town that feels both relatable and relevant to today's audiences." So there was kind of some leaks. Now, the leaks... are kind of like, there was kind of like a plot synopsis, like a very like how these things kind of go, much like take it with a grain of salt. But in that synopsis, in those leaks, it did actually say that Raccoon City wasn't going to be a city, and instead it was going to be a small town. So, even though they're kind of being faithful to the games, I think they're still going to be doing something different. Not as completely like unfaithful as the previous Mila Jovovich movie series.
But
I think they're gonna keep faithful to like the canon of the games, in the sense like, this thing happens in the games, so they're gonna happen. But I think they're taking some liberties, because I do find it weird that they are adapting both the first 2 games into one movie. Like, but maybe it's just so they can kind of get all the big characters in there, because obviously, you know, they're not all in there. But the story is set in 1998 on a fateful night in Raccoon City. Now, they say Raccoon City, but they also say it's in a small town, so, you know.
But like, if you compare the games to the last films, it's like Raccoon City in the games wasn't like a bustling metropolis like New York City, like Manhattan Island or something like that. It was kind of more reserved, like what you would find in more rural parts of United States. Like,
it's not like a Sydney, but it's a Wollongong.
it's exactly what I was going to say. Like Wollongong is a city, but it's not a bustling
like
skyscraper filled metropolis.
Yeah, it's not like Sydney or Melbourne.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's just Australian. If you're Australian and you live in New South Wales and you know, you know.
Yeah. And if you don't know, now you know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'll go through the cast, because there's actually, I do think there's some interesting choices here, but I do think overall it looks like it's a pretty solid cast.
I was very impressed. Very surprised and impressed.
Yeah. So we've got Kaya Scolodario. I think that's how you pronounce the name.
I actually don't know how to pronounce the name, because
I've
heard that, and I've heard Scoldelario.
Scoldelario. Let's just go with Scoldelario. Kaya Scoldelario.
I heard it was Kaya, but all right.
Kaya Effie. That's her name in Skins. She plays Effie in Skins, so I'm now just going to refer to her as Effie.
I'm terribly sorry.
Effie plays Claire Redfield, which I think is actually really solid casting, because I think she definitely looks like Claire Redfield, and she's recently been in the Maze Runner movies, so she's no stranger to action. Not that I've seen those movies beyond the first one, but
and horror as well, because she was in the survival thriller Crawl, directed by Alexander Aja and produced by Sam Raimi. So, so she's no stranger to dark thrillers / horror films, because she was very good in Crawl.
Yeah, I think she's definitely a good choice. I think that's a really good casting. In fact, in my view, I think that's probably the actual best casting. And I'll get into more on that in a sec, but I think that's, out of the whole cast that's been announced, I think that's the most on point. Next up, we've got Hannah John Kamen as Jill Valentine.
Carmen, I think it was. As Jill Valentine, yes.
As Jill Valentine. Now, I know her from, she was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I haven't seen. I haven't seen that, but yeah, she's in that. She was also in this isn't her first video game movie, because she was in Tomb Raider as well. Very briefly, but she was in it. And she's also done like a bunch of other random shit as well. She's done a few like series and stuff like that. So she's actually a really good actress from stuff I've seen her in a few
stuff. Yeah.
I think she's good casting. I wasn't 100% sold on it at first, and it has nothing to do with her ethnicity or anything like that. I was just like, yeah, she's good, but like there's a lot better options you could pick for this character. But it's kind of warmed on me a little bit. Like, I do like her as an actress, so I think she's gonna bring something interesting to that role.
It's funny because the ethnicity of any actress doesn't really affect it, especially when it comes to Jill Valentine, because you take one good look at Jill Valentine, you're like, oh, she's American. She's just standard
American.
She's a standard stereotypical white girl, and you're like, hold on, isn't the official law she's like half Japanese or a quarter Japanese or something like that?
Something like that.
And the games just kind of go, whereas,
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, Hannah John Carmen doesn't look anything like Jill Valentine from the games, and it's like, well,
no.
Does it really matter?
When you look at Jill Valentine in the games, she's Russian.
Yeah, because of her base model. Sasha Sutova. Yeah. She's Russian. Yeah.
Yeah, she's Russian. There we go. We fixed it, boys.
Yeah.
This is the new official Resident Evil canon. Jill Valentine is Russian.
But it's funny because you know how everyone has in their little heads. It's like, oh, well, perfect fan casting. Oh, this and that and stuff like that. I could always pick another actress than Kaya Scoladeria or
Mm.
Hannah John Carmen. But as soon as I saw Kaya as Claire, I went,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's perfect! Why
Yeah,
didn't
it
I think
works
of
so
that?"
well. Yeah.
And then Hannah John Carmen, I went, "I didn't even think of that. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
very
that."
like I think with her, it's very out of the box casting, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Like I mean like it's definitely like I said, like I was on board with it as soon as I literally read it, but I
Yeah.
was also like not 100% sold on it initially. But then I've just kind of warmed on it, and I'm like, hey, this is actually gonna be good. I think. But I will say one thing for the previous Resident Evil movies, for all of their faults, they definitely got their Jill Valentine casting
Yes,
on
they
point.
did. Yeah.
Sienna Guillory,
Mm-hmm.
bloody perfect.
Yes.
In fact, I was literally watching through all of her scenes from Resident Evil Apocalypse on YouTube
Because they're the
last
only
night.
good parts of that fucking movie.
And she's so good. Like she,
Yes.
you know, and she even like she even like walks like Jill Valentine does in the classic games and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's like the scene where she's going through that church and she's like got the gun down to her side and she's like walking on this slight angle type thing. It's really cool. I like it. She was perfect casting. And you know what? I would have been perfectly happy if they just recast her because I would really love her to play that character in a good movie. That would be really good. But yeah, no, I think though that's really good casting. So
Yes.
fuck yeah. And also, I would also add that I also do think that, you know, Jill Valentine's voice actress in the remake,
Nicole Tompkins.
Nicole Tompkins.
I think that's how you pronounce her name.
Yep, that's it.
Because I forgot how to spell it. So.
I also think she could actually pull off Jill Valentine in live action as well. I don't know if you've seen her Jill Valentine cosplay.
Yes.
But yeah, I really love like how
because I saw her collector's edition unboxing video.
Yeah.
I think that's where I saw her cosplay. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Now, look, I say that as well, but also, like, and also the thing about her is she's not primarily a voice actress. She's actually got much more experience in on-camera acting. You know how some voice actors are primarily voice actors,
Or mocap actors, yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't necessarily, you know, like, and there could be a reason they prefer to do that, or you know, whatever reason. She's primarily on-camera actress. She's done a bit of voice work and she's done a couple of games, but she's not like primarily in that field. So I think she could definitely, you know, pull it off a bit, pull it off. I think, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, I do want to see her as Jill again, and that's why I want them to make. That's why I'm like, after Resi 8, I want Resi 9. I want Jill Valentine. I want her back to play Jill Valentine in the modern day in the franchise. That's what I want. Also, I want to move away from the first-person perspective after Resident Evil 8.
What? I like the first person.
No, I have no problem with first-person whatsoever, but I actually really enjoy Resident Evil 7, but I kind of prefer the third-person, so, you know, I prefer to go back to that. But again, like, also, I'm a Resident Evil noob, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
So,
speaking of Resident Evil, because we're speaking about Resident Evil,
yes,
Robbie Amell was cast as Chris Redfield.
Yes.
Which is actually really good casting.
Yes. As soon as I saw that, because I think I saw the, I think it was GameSpot's Instagram post, and it had the actors' faces next to the in-game models, or stuff like that, and they had Chris's model from the 2002 remake of Resi 1, and I'm like, oh god, that's spitting image. That's picture perfect.
Yeah, and Robbie Amell's done a lot of stuff, like a lot of TV stuff mainly. Like he was most recently in the series Upload on Amazon Prime, and he also used to be in The Flash as well, as Firestorm back in the day.
Yes.
And he also did with Stephen Amell. He did that Code 8 film. He's actually the main character in Code 8.
Yes.
Which I believe he produced alongside Stephen Amell and produced and made that happen. So he's done that. And like I said this before the podcast, but I do want to say it again, is I've always, when watching Arrow, I've always thought that Stephen Amell would actually be a good Chris Redfield.
Yeah,
You know, I
but
thought, hey,
like
he would
he
be a
would
good
make a
Chris
good
Redfield.
Chris Redfield from 5, 6, and 7,
Yeah,
and hopefully 8 as well. But
yeah,
considering this film, sorry, is set in 1998, like the original trilogy, where Chris Redfield is 25, it it makes a lot more sense to have Robbie
yeah.
instead.
And he's a good kid. Like I say, it's good. He's the next best thing. Like I mean, in if you were talking about fan castings, in my fan casting, I would cast Stephen Amell as that. But also, you know, if he didn't do like 8 years of Arrow, then I'm sure he'd still be. If he didn't use 8 years of Arrow and he was as young as he was back then, which by the way, he was still in his he was like 30, like he still could pull it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But obviously, people age. But I definitely think he would work as like an older. As well, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's fan casting. Like, I think Robbie Amell's a great choice.
Yeah.
Do you know who else is actually a really good choice?
Mhm.
And that is Tom Hopper as Albert Wesker.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I like that one.
It's a very out there casting. Like, I would not have thought of him at all.
Yeah, didn't think of it at first.
But when because in fact, actually, I think the more perfect casting for Albert Wesker would have been, I know they're going for younger, but I actually think the guy they casted, Neil McDonough, who has also been in Arrow, as William Birkin, I think he would actually make a really good Albert Wesker, because he's actually a really good, like, villain actor. But also, I get he's too old, so,
Yeah,
he
Captain
works well
Wesker in the first game is 30 tops.
Yeah.
I
Tom
actually don't
Hopper's-
remember.
Tom Hopper's actually good, and Tom Hopper's been in a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think he's probably most known these days for the Umbrella Academy, but
Yeah.
he's been in quite a few films and stuff. The only thing I have ever seen him in, because I haven't watched the Umbrella Academy yet, the only thing I've ever seen him in is that one episode of Doctor Who that he was in. He was in Matt Smith's first episode of Doctor Who back in 2010.
Oh, wow.
And he played like this dude. He plays like this dude that lives in like Amy Pond's kind of like estate, like he's like Amy Pond's neighbor or whatever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and so the Doctor uses his computer at one point, and his character's name was Jeff. And it's funny because there's like a scene in that episode. He's actually in a little bit of the episode. Like, he's not a primary character or anything. He's just a small role. But there's a scene in that episode where the Doctor walks in to use his laptop, and he's on some kind of like camgirl website or something. So and he's like, I need your laptop, and he's like, no, like she's like, no, not letting him have it. And then then the Doctor takes it, and he has like this really worried look on his face, and then the Doctor opens it up, and he's just like, get a girlfriend, Jeff, and then just continues on with his business. And I'm like, this is great. Like, so that's all I know him from. I have not seen him in anything else. Like, I know he's been in a lot of things, but yeah, that's all I know him from. So, but I think he looks the part. So,
The funniest one is, was it Neil McDonough?
Neil McDonough is William Birkin.
Yeah. Not to sound mean or condescending, but because William Birkin is only, before he mutates, is only in like 1 or 2 scenes in Resident Evil 2, I can't help but feel that they got him in the role because he's a fantastic actor who will sell those 1 or 2 scenes that he's in.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to be disappointed. I'm hoping it's much more than a paycheck role where it's just like, oh, I've got this really big actor that we can put as like top as billing on the poster and stuff like that, and he's only in 2 scenes or something like that. But I hope it's a bit more than that.
The thing about that actor is he's very much established as a character actor, but he's also not like a big actor either. Like, he's been in a lot of things, but he's not like, I remember he was in those Star Trek Next Generation movies back in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was in, he's been in a lot of things. He was in Captain America. He was in the Peggy Carter show as well. And he was also in, he was also played Damien Dark in Arrow Season 4 and Legends of Tomorrow Season 2, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, season 4 of Arrow is fucking garbage, but he at least had a good. He actually had a really good performance, even though I didn't think the character writing for that particular character was very good. He was still really good in the role. But yeah, so like, he's an interesting character. There's only one other actor we haven't talked about, and that is Ivan Georgia as Leon S. Kennedy.
That's very interesting, that one.
I'm going to say I don't know who this actor is, and I've never seen him in anything. It says here he was in Zombieland Double
Yes,
Tap.
he was in Zombieland Double Tap, yeah.
I haven't seen that movie yet.
I have. He was good in that. He was very funny.
Okay, well... I mean,
it's
very...
He played like this...
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
He plays like this this poser hippie dude that, drives around the apocalypse with his guitar and in his fucking weird ass hippie clothes and smokes weed a lot and stuff like that. It was very funny performance, and and what makes it interesting casting for me is that, one, he looks very young, and he has the voice so I can see Leon lines being spatted out. So what makes Leon such an endearing, and Claire, an endearing characters in Resident Evil is that if you're an older person looking at them, you can go, oh, they're just kids. They're like 20, 21. Claire is 19, and it's like he's a rookie cop on his first day. You're like, man, you are way in over your head. You're just a kid, and you're fucking having to battle a zombie apocalypse on your first day on the force. Yeah. And I think that sort of character will actually fit with this actor very well, because...
Well, yeah, like, he's the only one I don't really know anything about. And, like, and again, it's similar, like, I mean, like, just based on looks, like, I don't think he looks the part. But with that said, though, I don't know him as an actor because I don't have anything to say about that. So I really have no thoughts on him whatsoever, to be honest with you.
Well, the thing about looks is that, once you just put that stupid ass Backstreet Boys haircut on him, then he'll be good to go. And like I said, after seeing Zombieland Double Tap, I can imagine his voice reciting very Leon-esque lines. Yeah. So I'm like, man, if you can make that stupid ass Backstreet Boys haircut work, then he'll be perfect.
And anything will be better than the Leon Kennedy we got in Resident Evil Retribution.
Mm-hmm.
I've completely forgot Ada Wong was in that movie until the other day. I was watching like a bit of it, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's right, Ada Wong is in this movie. And she's played like by this unknown Japanese actress, but is also voice dubbed by another actress. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And also Johan Erb, I think his name is, plays Leon S. Kennedy, and I'm like, the fuck is this? Yeah, exactly. It's funny because I actually don't mind that movie overall. I think it's a bit of fun, but like, it's definitely not good or anything, but it's a bit of fun. It's actually one of my... I think it's the better one out of those later movies, because I will say one thing about the previous Resident Evil series is the first 3 movies work well together. Like, if you have like the first movie, Apocalypse and Extinction, they actually work well as like a rounded package. Like, you can watch those 3 movies, and also those 3 movies, they're not great.
No.
And they're not faithful to the games. No. But they aren't terrible movies. Like, you can tell there was at least a shit... Well, they aren't. Because you can tell there's at least a shit being given here, especially with the second and third one, and in terms of like... Because Paul W.S. Anderson isn't directing those either, and they feel very different to all of the other
I'll
movies.
give you that one,
Extinction is the best one.
It is, yeah.
And it's also the most different one. It's actually in fact, in my opinion, Extinction's actually a very competent movie, like, on its own. Like, if you watch that movie on its own, it's actually a good time, and it's a somewhat decent script. But then like Apocalypse, it's fine. Like I don't think Apocalypse is bad. I just don't think it's like good either. I think it's just relatively fine. Obviously, as an adaptation of Resident Evil 3, because it's the only film that actually adapts one of the games, it's really bad.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible. But as its own thing, it's fine. Like, it's just whatever. I do actually like Resident Evil 1, though. Like, Resident Evil 1 is just a dumb action movie, and it's good. Like, those three, like, there's a lot of redeeming qualities about those films. Like, they work as a package. And then you go to 4, 5, and 6.
4 is rubbish.
4 is rubbish.
Resident Evil, was it Afterlife?
Yeah.
Oh,
4's rubbish.
That was rubbish.
5 is garbage, but it's also just really fun. That movie also has Jill Valentine in it, and Sienna Guillory is actually really good in that movie as well as playing RE5 Jill.
Yeah.
But that movie's just it's really dumb, but I don't think it's bad, on its own. It's just a dumb movie. And then 6 is just horrendous. Like, you think Resident Evil 4 is bad? 6 is fucking trash. Like, 6 is garbage. And I made a whole video about it. You can go find that on my channel.
Yeah, I caught a few scenes from the final chapter movie on Foxtel Movies one day, and I'm just like, oh god.
Do you know what I want? I want the raw footage for that film, because I can guarantee you I will edit that film better. So Constantine Film, if you're listening, hit me up, give me the raw footage, and I'll actually make at least a better movie than what you released. The story's still going to be just as shit, but at least it will be edited properly, and you'll be able to kind of understand what's going on in any given moment.
Like I said, it'll be called the competent cut.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's all there really is to say about Resident Evil, the reboot movie thing. It's interesting because originally after the last film, they were like, we're going to reboot the film. And then they were like, we're not rebooting the series. Instead, we're going to make a Netflix series. And then now they're like, we're doing the Netflix series, but we're also rebooting the film. So it's kind of like, there's just so much Resident Evil things happening at the moment.
It's funny because when I heard, they were going to do a Netflix series instead, I'm like, all right, the perfect thing you can do is, can you imagine if they made a Netflix series where it was the first 2 episodes of season 1 were a very faithful adaptation of Resident Evil 1, and then episode 3 was Resident Evil 2 from Claire's perspective, episode 4 was Resident Evil 2 from Leon's perspective, and then episode 5 was the entirety of Resident Evil 3, because that game is a little shorter than the others, and so on and so forth. Maybe you put in a little Code Veronica and stuff like that, and then if you go, all right, if the first season is successful, then we can adapt Resident Evil 4 and 5 in subsequent seasons, but the first season will be the classic old school Resident Evil games. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, man, that's a very good idea. And then they go, now the Netflix series will be about the Wesker children. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, it's going to be like a fucking... It's literally going to be like that new Walking Dead spin-off. That's literally a teen drama, but it's The Walking Dead. And I'm like, why the fuck is The Walking Dead still a thing, for starters? And second, what the fuck? And it's exactly the same with Resident Evil. Like, I mean, again, like, I'm not that ingrained in the games to really care that much about a series about the Wesker children. But even I was like... This just sounds like a teen drama. Like, why is Netflix making yet another teen drama? Like, fuck off. But you know what? Who knows? Maybe it might be good. We really don't know.
What I'd like to see is if this new reboot film is good, it can do exactly what I said about the Netflix series, but in film format instead of television.
Yeah. I think, though, trying to adapt the games, I think, would work better in a series format than trying to adapt it to film.
That's why I structured them the way I did, where it's like, first 2 episodes, the first game's.
If it's at least anything, you know what? And here's the thing, and just in video game movies in general, like, I really don't care if they are faithful to the letter. You know, like, I don't need
some of my favorite films based on books are very different to the books.
I don't need them to retell the exact story from the games. Like, I'm
Well,
perfectly
yeah.
fine with them doing something different.
But what I
You
need
know,
them to
like
do
what they need to do is be just faithful to
the spirit.
the identity
Yes.
of what the thing is, you know, and that's why I think the Tomb Raider film from 2018 works really well, is because it is faithful to that version of Tomb Raider that it's adapting,
Yes.
but it also tells its own completely different story, and it goes in its own direction to, by the end of it, it's actually more setting up classic Tomb Raider than it is making a game, even though from what we understand, the second movie is going to be based on Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So, like, but again, like, I think that works, you know, like, the problem is, and this is why I think a lot of video game movies don't work, is they try to do their own thing and they're not quite faithful, or they just try to, as we've seen with Assassin's Creed, try to make something that's set within the continuity of the games, but then the problem with doing that is you then also have to re-establish everything for an audience that may not have played the games, and it's just shit. Like, that movie, there's like 20 minutes of that movie that's actually good. The rest of it's garbage, and that's why I think Tomb Raider works really well. And I haven't seen a lot of other video game movies that have been released more recently, like I don't know much about like Detective Pikachu or like, you know,
Detective
like
Pikachu is actually the a good way of doing it. How you said, where it's like it doesn't have to be to the letter. It just has to reestablish the spirit and
as long as you
themes of
stay
the original.
faithful to, like you said, the spirit and the identity, I think it's fine to do whatever the fuck you want. You know, if characters are at least true to their video game counterparts, and, you know, like, you're adapting some lore, but you're doing, you know, you're taking bits and pieces of lore, but you're doing that justice, you know, I think you can literally do whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't have to be, like, that's why I'm, like, perfectly fine, like, even if this story doesn't directly adapt Resident Evil 1 and 2, but instead, like the director says, goes back to that kind of experience of what Resident Evil 1 and 2 gives. Even if it's not directly adapted, you know, like, even if at some point in the film fucking Chris and Claire meet each other, you know, it doesn't matter, as long as the identity of the like the identity of the franchise and like what the feeling of those games is captured, then I think it's fine. You know what I mean? But, you know, it is what it is. You know, it's either going to be good or it's going to be shit. Who knows? They haven't shot it yet, so we don't know anything about it. I don't know when it's being shot, actually. It might be shot maybe early next year, maybe? I don't know. Depends on where they're shooting it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have to really say about Resident Evil. It's a thing. So I think we'll just move right along, and we'll move on to our catch-up segment.
Yes.
So I'll let you go through with this. What have you been... we'll keep this brief so we can kind of just get into Avengers, but what have you been doing lately? What have you been playing?
Playing mostly Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection on Nintendo Switch. What else?
How's that? How's Super Mario?
Very good. It's a bit disappointing that they are basically to celebrate Super Mario's 35th anniversary. You would think in this current boom of Activision completely remaking from scratch Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, you would think, oh, these are all remakes or enhanced remasters of three classic 3D Mario games, but they're not. They're enhanced ports. They're kind of emulated. I think they are actually emulated, but essentially the only difference between the 3D All-Stars versions and the originals is that they run at a higher resolution and they run at a better performance because the Switch is much more powerful than any other Nintendo system. So, like, say, I think Super Mario 64 runs at 240p, whereas the Switch version runs at 720p. Sunshine on the GameCube runs at 480 on the GameCube and runs at 1080 on Switch, and I think Galaxy is 480 on Wii and 1080 on Switch, and they do look nicer. Look much nicer. Look like modern
Sorry, that was just
releases. That's all right. They look like modern releases of them. They look like small little remasters, but they are enhanced ports and not remakes or massively overhauled versions of the games. I did like how they implemented motion controls into the Switch version of Galaxy, because when you played on the Wii, you would have a little pointer that you would move around to pick up star bits and stuff like that. The Switch version, because the Joy-Cons have little 6-axis things inside them, or like motion sensors inside them, you would just wave that around instead. And because the Switch doesn't have the the sensor bar, at any time where you feel like the pointer is not accurate to where you're pointing, you can tap the R button at any time, and it'll immediately recenter the pointer to the center of the screen. So it's hold the pointer at the position you're most comfortable with, and tap R, and it'll recenter it for you, and stuff like that, which I thought was actually a very good way to get around not having Wiimotes to play with for Mario Galaxy. And the motion controls work with Pro Controller as well. And if you're playing on handheld mode, where you have the Joy-Cons clicked on the other side of the system, you instead drag your finger across the touchscreen to point at stuff. So it's a good way to get around them, which I thought was very good. I've also been playing a lot of Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. I would have had it finished, but I've needed to play Avengers for this episode. So hopefully, now that I'm going to be playing a little bit less of Avengers, I will get back to Crash Bandicoot 4 and hopefully finish it. That has been very good. A gigantic kick in the balls, because it's very hard, but very fun. So
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you've been watching anything lately. Have you seen any of the things, or
I'm sorry, your little audio cut out a little bit. So
but watching what was that, Cobra Kai? Is that what you said?
No, Crash Bandicoot 4.
Oh, is that all? So you haven't been watching anything? I thought you cut out, and I thought you said you've been watching Cobra Kai, because I know that just recently dropped on Netflix. So
I've been watching a little bit with my brother and sister. Just put it on sometimes, maybe watching that. I need to start it and watch all of that, but
I have no intention of watching that show at all. But
I do.
I'm glad for the people that do. I just got way too much to watch to want to watch that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so much shit I'd rather watch, and I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I can let this one slide. Well, that's cool. Well, I've been doing a bit of gaming. I recently played through Don't Nod's new game, Tell Me Why, which is a kind of, I guess, it's an Xbox Microsoft exclusive, so I had to buy it on PC and play it on that rather than PS4. It's 3 episodes, so it's in that kind of episodic formula like Life is Strange, but it's only 3 episodes, and it's really good. I quite like it. It was quite fun. Like, I remember when they released the trailer, like, I know they revealed it last year, but I somehow missed it. So earlier in the year at that Xbox presentation, the live stream, when they revealed it, I genuinely thought it was Life is Strange, because I was like, this just looks like Life is Strange. And then it's like, Tell Me Why, and it's like an Xbox thing. I'm like, okay, because I remember they revealed the Life is Strange Before the Storm at the Xbox E3 conference, back before that game came out. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just, something that they're doing for Microsoft. And no, it's actually a kind of partnership with Xbox Studios to create something there. It's really good. It's a game that's all about kind of like memory, and kind of like the main character's like a trans character, and it's basically about like the two siblings kind of reuniting after 10 years, and it's kind of uncovering the mystery of their mother, because one of the siblings, I'm going to say this without spoilers, but one of the siblings killed the mother while she was trying to kill the other sibling. And so the game, so they have a certain perspective of that night's events, but then the game kind of unravels, and you kind of unravel the mystery of the mother character, and you find out things about her which put in doubt what actually happened that night. And then it's kind of a big mystery. There's no real like villain, like, you know, like the Life is Strange games have like there's like a villain character in those games. In this game, there's no real villain. It's just more about uncovering this mystery. And it's actually a really good look into a lot of different things, not just like, you know, obviously looking into like, you know, themes of being transgender and things like that, but it's also a very good story about like memory and perspective, and you know, how people might remember things differently based on their perspective, and how, like, you know, the way you remember it, something isn't the same as how someone else remembers it. But then it's like, well, which way did it actually happen? And there's points in the game, just like Life is Strange, where you actually make a choice. You both remember things a certain way, and you actually, as the player, will make a choice over which memory you think is real or not, and then that kind of affects the story. It affects it a lot more than Life is Strange, let me tell you that. But the thing about it is, it's also like with the Life is Strange game, it's got that kind of like supernatural element to them, because the twins, they actually can speak to each other. They've got this power where they can speak to each other in their mind.
Telepathically.
Yeah, telepathically, but also they can both see visions of memories. So this is how you're exploring the memories, is they actually come up as visions in the scenes for these characters. And so it's actually really cool. They've got some kind of like powers, which is very like Don't Nod. So it's a very grounded, realistic story, but also has that kind of supernatural element to it. But I will say one thing: the dialogue has improved a lot since Life is Strange. Let me tell you that.
Oh, thank God for that.
Oh my God, they're not writing teenage characters anymore, so the dialogue's actually pretty good. There's still a few cringy lines, but it's not like teenage angst cringe. Like, it's actually like the dialogue for the most part is pretty good. So I've been playing that. Good. That's been a good game to play, and that's actually the first of Don't Nod's games that are coming out this year, because they have another game coming out in December. Which is Twin Mirror. That'll be released, and that was originally meant to be an episodic game, but that's now, I think, being put all together as one game, and that's just going to be released in December. So Don't Nod have two games coming out this year, which is
splendid.
Pretty cool. And it's interesting that I played Tell Me Why first before playing Life is Strange 2. I still haven't played Life is Strange 2 yet. I played one episode of that, and I'm just not into it. I'm really avoiding that game, and eventually I'm going to play it, but I just have no interest in playing it. So I'm kind of glad Tell Me Why is like its own IP, its own thing. But I've been playing that. And I've also been watching, on Amazon Prime, I've watched season 1 of Harley Quinn.
Yep.
It's a good fucking show. It's so good. It's like it's a show that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very much like just a fun ride throughout. There's like an ongoing story throughout it, kind of, but it's basically just kind of Harley Quinn, similar to like Birds of Prey. It's kind of Harley Quinn trying to find her identity post Joker as herself. And they kind of do set up the whole, and bear in mind, I haven't seen season 2 yet, but it's not on Amazon Prime. But just solely in the context of season 1, they do kind of set up the kind of potential romance for Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. But like all the characters in this thing are just really like, I don't want to use the word dumb, but they're really like silly versions of these characters. Like, you got King Shark in this film, in this series, and he is just this, again, I don't want to use the word dumb, but he's just like this really silly like version of King Shark. And then there's Clayface in it, who's like an actor. So he's very serious about performing roles, but he also thinks he's like this Shakespearean type actor when he's really not. And fucking Scarecrow sounds like he's from London. Like, you know, he's got that real like London accent. It's really good. Like, even like the hero characters are also like characterized a bit silly. Like Superman turns up at one point and he's a little bit of a silly like version of Superman. Like, it's just like this really non-serious, like really bizarre, like just fucking wild show. So much, like, I can't even begin to talk about just so much shit happens in the space of, I think it's 12 or 13 episodes, I can't quite remember, but so much shit happens, and it's just wild. The Joker's a recurring character, and they kind of explore kind of Joker and Harley's relationship post when they split up. So there's like a little bit of that in there as well. And yeah, like no character is safe in this thing. Like because I did hear a lot that they just kill off like all these iconic characters, but like that doesn't really happen a lot in season 1. It might be more of a season 2 thing, but I do know like they just kill Scarecrow off just like that. Like it's not even like a big deal. It's not even a big scene. It just happens, and you're just like, oh well, fucking Scarecrow's dead now. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, that's a cool little fun series, and I recommend watching it. It's a really good time, and Kaylee Cuoco is really good.
I've heard so, yeah.
She really nails this role. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'd recommend watching it, and they kind of take inspiration from a lot of different elements. So there's a lot of like comic book elements thrown in there, but also in terms of like Harley's look, that they take the kind of Suicide Squad look for Harley.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of various different elements that are kind of being mashed together. It's actually great. So like Poison Ivy lives in this apartment, and there's like this housemate character, but the housemate character is just a talking plant. And it's great. But then there's the landlord, who also happened to be like some kind of like spy assassin or some shit, like back when he was younger. And so he's like the landlord of this apartment, and he just keeps like popping up in small roles at first, but then he becomes like a really crucial character, and he's like this old guy in a wheelchair with a robot arm. But the series basically leads towards a confrontation with Joker, and that's essentially what the final part of the series is. It's essentially Harley going up against Joker to basically save Gotham, I guess. But yeah, Alan Tudyk plays the Joker, and he's really good. Like he's definitely channeling a lot of like Mark Hamill vibes with his performance. So he's really good, but he's also like a really silly version of the Joker as well. I think the most serious character in that show is Lex Luthor. I think he's the most serious one, and even he's a bit silly. It's great. But there's like this really great scene with they're like robbing like the crew are like stealing something from Atlantis, and then like Aquaman turns up, and I was like, wow, this is a really like stupid version of Aquaman. I'm like, this is so dumb, like what the fuck is this? And then that version of Aquaman turns out to be Clayface pretending to be Aquaman, and I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense, because it was just so cringy, and like that's the whole point of Clayface's character, is he thinks he's like this big Shakespearean actor, but he's really just this cringy like actor that puts on this like Shakespearean type voice when he's pretending to play a role, and he's also really unbelievable whenever he tries to impersonate anyone. It's a great thing. It's such a good show. I'm looking forward to watching season 2, so I hope that drops on Amazon Prime soon. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, other than that, I haven't been really doing much else. So you know, I've just been working. I did play a little bit of Resident Evil 3 in first person, which I did for a video, which by the time this podcast's out is either up on my channel or it's not. So look out for that. But that game's kind of fun in first person. But other than that, I've just been kind of playing Avengers, which is what we're going to talk about now.
Indeed.
Oh, what a segue. So yeah, that's a game I forced myself to play. And I will say straight up, we'll just do a quick non-spoiler impressions of the game. This game, the best way to describe Marvel's Avengers is it's got a really severe identity crisis. And honestly, I don't think you could objectively say this is a good game. It's a fun game, if that makes sense. It has its moments where it's like actually really fun to play, but then I'm also like, it's a bit shit, isn't it? But also, like,
here's what I would say. You said it has a severe case of identity crisis. I think Avengers would be an absolutely fantastic game if it committed to one of its identities.
It's two games. It's a single player focused story action adventure game, and then it's also a live service multiplayer Destiny clone.
Yeah.
And those two, the problem is those two clashing identities, because there's two of them, neither of them are done right or as well as they could be. And I want to emphasize, like, there is actually a good game here somewhere. Like, there is something here. The problem is it's just surrounded by so much shit that it's like, it really drags the whole thing down. And like, when I say there's a good game here, I mean this game is actually fun at times. Like, I do genuinely think this game's fun to play. And
a lot of the scripted campaign missions are very good. Indeed.
There's a lot of really good stuff in the campaign. And even when you're just playing the game, like, some of the heroes are actually really fun to play.
Yes. All of them are really fun to play as.
I disagree with that, but also I'll come to that in a little bit. One thing I don't like about this game, and I wanna just bring this up right now, just so we don't have to talk about it anymore after this, is that I don't think this game is well cast. I think, like, we've got a lot of iconic voice actors in this game, right? You've got your Nolan North, you've got your Troy Baker, you've got your Laura Bailey, you've got whoever the fuck else is in this game.
Jennifer Hale.
Jennifer Hale's in this game?
Yeah,
like,
she voices Maria Hill.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Like, when I heard her, when I heard Maria Hill for the first time, I was like, what the fuck? Jennifer Hale is in this? So there's a lot of iconic voice actors, but the issue I have with this game, and it's not so much with their performance, it's more, I just don't think some of them are cast right. In particular, I don't think Troy Baker and Nolan North are in the right roles. I think
you know what's funny? I completely disagree.
It's just weird. It's weird. Like, I actually think Troy Baker does a fine job as Bruce Banner, but I actually think he's a more perfect casting choice for Iron Man than Bruce Banner. I think that's a weird casting choice. I can't take Iron Man seriously as a character. One, because you're not meant to, but two, I just can't take I'm just like, oh my god, it's just Nolan North. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't think the issue I have with this game is it's not really so much with the actors themselves, I don't think. I think it's more in the writing and the direction, because I don't think these are great performances from these actors. Like, I think Troy Baker is fine, but he also sounds like he's bored when reading it, and I don't think that's him. I think it's the direction. And Nolan North is really not that convincing, and again, I don't think it's him. I think it's the writing and the direction, because I am going to say one thing about the characters in this game. They are all one-dimensional. Every single Avenger is a one-dimensional, bare-bones version of these characters. The only character that has any kind of personality is Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
And I get she's the protagonist, I get she's the main character, but you can't make all the other characters a blank slate. And that's why I just don't think... I think it seems like what they've done is they've gone for big-name voice actors because for some reason every single game has to have Nolan North or Troy Baker in it. And they've gone for these big-name actors, but they haven't really thought about what works or not. They've just gone, we need big-name actors, and let's get a new voice actor that we've never really had an experience with to play Kamala. And I think she's the best in this game. Like, not just the best character, I think she's the best vocal performance. I think she's the best... Like, she's the one that actually feels like... And again, like, I'm not saying this is the actual voice cast necessarily. I'm just saying she's the only one that actually comes across like she's actually trying or giving a shit, where everyone else kind of comes across like they're there for the paycheck. And again... It might not be them. It might be them. They might be there for the paycheck. Who fucking knows? But I don't feel like Troy Baker and Nolan North are the type of actors to do something just for the paycheck. Like, I feel like, unless it's maybe a smaller role, I guess, but I feel like if they're playing a main role in a game, they would do it because they would do it because they want to do it, and but it doesn't come across at any point in the game with any of those characters that aren't Kamala Khan like they're trying, with the exception of one, but also the same problem exists for her character, and that is Black Widow. I think Laura Bailey is actually good casting for Black Widow. I think she's got a really good voice for that role, but again, Black Widow is such a blank fucking slate that she has no personality whatsoever. And the problem is you get these big name voice actors who we know for a fact can deliver exceptional performances, and their performances are bland and just really, I'm gonna say the word shit, but not because of them. You know what I mean? Like, I think the direction is really terrible. Whoever was directing their vocal performances, fuck them right off for DLC. Like, replace them, get someone else in, because they did a shit job at directing them. And whoever's writing this game, write better characters, please. I just want good characters. Can I have some good characters? They're the fucking Avengers. Why are the Avengers... Why does Kamala Khan have more personality than the Avengers? You know what what is going on? But Kamala Khan is the best part about this story.
Yes.
And I use the word story very loosely. Now, I want to emphasize, I don't hate these characters or necessarily the interpretations. I'm just saying they're really poorly directed and written. And even if it came out, even if Troy Baker said on one of the podcasts that he does that he genuinely did this for the paycheck, I would be like, you know what? I see it. I get it. Because, you know, I probably, if I was an actor and I looked at the script for this game, I would have been like, I don't think I'm going to put that much effort into this one. Because Square Enix definitely didn't. But, like, that's just my comment on the voice acting. Like, I think, like, again, you've got great actors, but I just don't think they're well cast, and I don't think the characters are well written. The story itself...
yes.
Let's just move straight past impressions now. That's all I have to say, is this game's kind of fun to play, but also has really terrible voice acting. And when I say terrible voice acting, I don't mean like it's bad. I'm just running in circles now. You know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. But the story, Jesus. I actually didn't mind playing it when I was playing it. The problem is I've had time to think about it. And it's really not that good. It's got moments.
Yes, for sure.
But I don't think it's that great. The game kind of just abandons Kamala Khan like halfway through. And well, not really halfway through, but like towards the end, it just kind of abandons that character altogether, even though she's meant to be the protagonist.
It does put a lot of emphasis on, because you know, Iron Man has to go into space and rescue Cap, and Thor becomes a playable character, and
Thor's in this game. You wouldn't think it playing it, but he turns up. He's in it for like 5 minutes. Like, this is what I'm coming back to. Like, this is, like, I feel like, the campaign, I think, this is what I'm saying. Like, there is a good game here, and I think there's actually some good stuff in the campaign. And I think the idea of reforging the Avengers, I actually quite like that. Like, I like the idea that you're playing as this B-list character who's trying to get the band back together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the game's about. The problem is that is literally all the campaign is. Because as soon as you've got the Avengers together, you just go straight off to the final mission, and it's the end of the game. Like, this game, this campaign, I can tell you right now, this campaign can be completed in about 4 and 5 hours if you ignore the fact that there is a whole bunch of multiplayer missions scattered throughout the campaign, disguised as campaign story to pad it out. Did you notice that? Did you notice, especially in the second half of the game, like, it's like we need to recruit the Avengers, but then each story campaign mission for a little while there is just like a fucking generic co-op mission. It's like you know, you go to the place and then you've got to get into the base, and then you have the second part of it that's in the base, and then but then they disguise it as story content by having a kind of general plot, sort of.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't you just make a campaign? Like, just make a game. Story. And the problem is like there's very few actual story focused missions, but when the missions do focus on story and it's like a cinematic, like, you know it's not that generic mission structure, it's actually its own thing. That's when this game shines.
Yes, absolutely.
Regardless of how kind of the story actually is, the actual missions, the campaign,
and the scenarios are very good.
Yeah, it's somewhat decent. Like, you know, like you said before, you've got that whole mission where you play as Iron Man and you go to space and you go to that satellite, and that's really cool. And then you get Captain America, and by the way, that was a fucking twist. That wasn't even a twist. Like, you can't say Captain America being alive is a twist.
Especially
like,
when he's on the cover.
Because he was promoted so heavily prior to the game's release. Like, we already knew that he was going to die, in quotation marks, but like, there was no way you're going to put Captain America in a game and then kill him off and then just have him as this like playable character form. Of course he's going to come back. Like, so that wasn't really much of a twist, but you know, I thought the mission itself was kind of cool. And there's a lot of good missions, like
the final mission of the campaign as well.
The final mission's great.
Yeah, in fact, the only thing, and you're going to see a lot of comparisons to this series from me going forward, the only thing that disappointed me is that when Kamala finally embraces Embiggen and she becomes the size of a skyscraper.
It reminded me of God of War.
Exactly right. It was the final boss fight from God of War, and I'm like, oh, it's like the final boss fight from God of War, and then it's a quick time event, and I'm like, man.
No, but here's the thing. Here's what happened to me. It wasn't so much the fact that it was a quick time event. It was like, oh my god, it's the final boss fight from God of War. Oh, it's the final boss fight from God of War. So this is just another thing they've just stolen from another game. Because that's the one thing I want to say about this game isn't original in any capacity.
No.
It is literally, and it's more so much the thing, but like when you look at it, the mission structure is Warframe. The UI is Destiny. The gear system is Destiny. The way the perks work with the gear is Destiny. Everything is literally Destiny, but with an Avengers label slapped on it. And you know what? The campaign in Destiny is better. Just saying. But what the big difference between Destiny and this game, and I'll come back to this kind of when we talk about the multiplayer, like looter shooter side of it. But the main difference between Destiny and Warframe in this is Destiny and Warframe are actually competent, really good games that have a big emphasis on gameplay. Like Destiny,
they're technically sound,
yeah. Like no one plays Destiny so much for the story. Like the story's cool and all, the lore's really cool, but like no one really plays it. Like Destiny is all about the gameplay. It's all about that gunplay.
Yeah.
This game doesn't do that very well.
No.
The big difference between Destiny and Warframe and this is Destiny feels different to play depending on what gear choices you have and what weapons you're using. It actually feels different. Warframe feels different depending on what perks you're using, what cards you're using. This game feels the same no matter what gear you're using, no matter what hero you're playing. It's literally exactly the same. There is no difference between any of the heroes whatsoever in terms of general gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, some of them can fly. Black Widow has a couple of guns. Big fucking whoop. In terms of like the general gameplay structure, it's exactly the same for each character. And I would also think for some characters, like, say, the Hulk, for example, it's worse. Because the Hulk is very slow. He is not fun to play at all because he is so slow. The reason why I like playing Black Widow is because Black Widow is very quick. She's fast. She's quick to move around. You can kind of thing. And I guess that's a difference, I guess. But when the problem is here is you've got all these different heroes with different abilities, but they've had to make one core gameplay structure. So all of these different abilities and heroes have to form into this one gameplay structure with what is essentially 2 buttons. And it's like, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And that's like, and the reason why it works in Destiny and the reason why it works in that is because you're not dealing with different powers, like where the difference comes. I mean, you are if you pick different, subclasses or whatever. But like, it comes. I guess I'm going to talk about this now. I guess it comes from what gear you're using. It comes like that actually matters. Like in Warframe and Destiny, gear is not just to give you advantages or change kind of playstyle or certain variations. It's also a statement. It's a statement to other players. It's a fashion statement. There's a reason why they call Warframe fashion frame. Like, it's not just a statement about, like, it's not just looking cool, being badass and looking cool while doing it. It's also a statement to other players to be like, hey, you have this high level gear that's showing you know what the fuck you're doing because you've grinded the hours to get that high level gear. In this game, gear means nothing.
Sorry. Hold on, my phone's ringing.
Oops. That's all right.
But never mind, it's not ringing anymore.
Okay, cool. Well, we can just cut that bit out.
Yep.
But gear's relevant in this game. Why is gear a thing in this game? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really affect how you play it, and it doesn't really affect the look of your character. So what's the point? Like, I know it bumps your stats up, but you could just do that by leveling up. You don't need gear to do that. So this is one of like the one areas where this game fails is in its gear system. It fails as a looter shooter. And I kind of jumped the gun a bit on this, but I started talking about it and I thought I might as well just do it. But this game is essentially a Destiny clone. It is literally Destiny, but it's Avengers.
Which is why I find it disappointing because, like I said, you said it has an identity crisis, and I think it would be a much better game if it committed to one of its identities. I think the game would have been a much better experience if it was instead a clone of 2018's God of War and not Destiny. Because if you look at God of War 2018, yes, it's a single player game. I'm not saying that it has to be single player. You can put in co-op mode, drop in, drop out, and all this stuff like that. But there's a heavy emphasis on linear gameplay and combat, and you can make hubs into, like, for example, you got like the Pacific Northwest and the Eastern Seaboard and all of that stuff. Just like you can go to the Bifrost in God of War and choose different realms like Alfheim or Helheim or stuff like that. So if you can make like one thing be your central hub, like Midgard in that game, and then all the other places, little small worlds to explore that you can access via the Chimera,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
then that would be much better. And if they put more emphasis on the gear that you unlock being more unlockables that you find and collect and not grind resources for, then
Mm.
that would be, I would find that would be worth the effort much more than if it was just a straight
I mean,
rip-off
you,
of
you
Destiny.
grind resources to upgrade them, but you still kind of just it like in Destiny, like you do get random drops, and that's kind of primarily how the gear system works in this. Is it's just kind of random drops. It's not that much more in depth than that. Like in Destiny, like you get all this gear, and you can actually infuse that gear with other gear to make other gear more powerful, or depending on what level of gear, you can upgrade it. You can do all sorts of things. In this game, you can upgrade the level of the gear, but it's kind of a pointless thing, and that's what you collect all the resources for, right?
Yeah.
But it's pointless doing because as you play the game, all the gear that drops is going to be a higher level to what you are anyway. So you don't need to ever, and because it has no effect on gameplay or thing, like the only effect gear level has is what your power level is, which just determines what enemies you can go up against.
Yeah.
So it does, but it doesn't affect your gameplay, and that's why Destiny, and Warframe are better systems because, not only does it affect your gameplay, but you also have to be strategic about it because you might find an armor set that you really like. So rather than just dismantling it and getting rid of it, you keep it. So then when you get some more powerful armor, you can then upgrade that armor that you like. You know what I mean? Like there's more depth to it. This is basically like just get gear to level up your power level. Also, speaking of Destiny, this game has a light level and a level for each character. And it's like,
there's a level
why?
and then there's a power level.
I know it's called a power level, but it is literally a light level.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you said that, yeah.
And it's like, why? Why can't my character just level up? And as the character levels up,
Yes.
the stats level up. Why do I need to have gear to level up these characters? It's just dumb. It's a dumb system. It doesn't work. And on top of that, this game is broken as fuck.
Yes.
And when I say broken, I don't necessarily mean it's glitchy. I mean the balance between gear and enemies is completely off. And bear in mind, I haven't played this game for a couple of weeks, and I know there's been an update, but on launch, when I was playing this game, after playing a few days of Tony Hawk, and then I forced myself to play it, this game was broken as fuck. Like, you would go up against enemies, but the problem is like, the balancing between enemy levels and your levels isn't balanced correctly. Like it is in other games like Warframe and Destiny. Even games like fucking Witcher, like there's a certain balance there, there's a certain challenge. Like you could go up against enemies that are a higher level than you. It's more challenging, but you can still do it if they're not too high. Where in this game, if they're like one level higher than you, you get fucking wrecked. They're so bullet spongy at that point, and it's only one level. And it's just, and I think that's something they have improved. I think in the last update they did improve that, but at the same time, it's really just really poorly done. And another thing is the HUD is terrible. Like there's all these notifications that will notify you of certain incoming attacks, but the problem is sometimes they don't notify you. And you can't see incoming attacks, and you could just be killed or downed by an attack you don't know is coming because you can't see it. And this kind of happens when you start to have a lot of enemies on screen at once, and this kind of happens not so much in the single player missions, but in the live service co-op mission structure. And yeah, the game is broken as fuck, and it leads to this game being frustrating and unfun to play.
Also, full disclosure, because this still confuses me. How does the revive system actually work? Because sometimes you will be down and need to be revived, but more often than not, I'll just die, even when I have
So when
when
you're playing on your own with AI teammates, essentially, I don't know how this works in multiplayer because I haven't really played this game online too much. I played a little bit with Lewin during the beta, but it was something I was meaning to do, and then I decided to go back just to playing Resident Evil 7, quite frankly, because I was just over it. But basically, you can be downed and revive, and you can be revived, and I believe you can be revived once, and then after by the AI teammates, and then after that, you die and have to reload at a checkpoint. I don't think it works that way in multiplayer because there's more people playing, so you don't instantly fail the mission. I think you only fail the mission and have to go back if everyone is downed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bit silly.
Yeah, that's rubbish. I'd rather just, if I'm down, revive me. If the AI is stupid and they can't reach me, I mean, yeah, that's shit luck. It happens in most games, but it's like...
But also, how is it that the only objective that AI seem to know how to do is how to revive you?
Yeah,
but they are completely oblivious to any other objective in this game. And that's the thing, like I said earlier, the multiplayer, like we can come back to the story in a sec, but the campaign is basically, there's a few, not much, but there's a few story-focused missions that are all unique and they all do their own thing. Obviously, they still have the fight this wave of enemies or this wave of enemies or whatever, but then it's padded out by all these multiplayer missions that are disguised as story content, and all the objective and each of these multiplayer missions have a basic objective, right? Usually you're in the outside area, you've got to get into the base, so usually you've got to take out X amount of enemies or whatever to be able to get access to the lift. Then you go down and you've got to complete an objective or whatever, and then some of them are like there's 2 stages, some of them you go to a 3rd stage where there's another objective you need to complete, right? They're all basic objectives. They're standard objectives. It's like either take out a high leveled enemy, or it's like you've got to go around and destroy these bits, or there's a capture the flag type one where you've got to capture the points, right? And as you capture the points, Jarvis can hack the thing, so you've got to stop the enemies from getting the points. Now, why is it that the enemy AI is perfectly capable of capturing these points, but the hero AI is not?
Yes.
Why can't they do this? It's stupid. And it's also the same for like the little, like, how there's like little warehouses type things where you've got to stand on the points or smash the door to open it up to get more gear. Yeah. Why can't the AI stand on that point? Why do you have to go and stand on that point?
On top of the fact that why the fuck does it bother implementing the whole capture the point thing where you got to capture A, B, or C? I don't want this. This is bad.
Yeah, like, I mean, again, and that falls in, like Warframe does the same. Like, this is why I said the gameplay loop of the game is Warframe. It's more Warframe than it is Destiny, because Warframe is very much that same thing. You play the same missions over and over and over again with the same objectives, and the Warframe objectives are usually simple objectives. They're nothing too complicated, right? But again, that game does that right, because when you play as different Warframes have different abilities, different gear gives you different perks, the game always feels different to play. Also, Warframe is a very fast-paced game.
Yes.
Like, it's a fast-paced game. So you're never playing one mission for too long. You're always jumping from the same missions that you've played a million times before, but you're doing it over and over again. But it's always fun to play because you're always doing different things.
Yeah.
This game is not fast-paced to play. It's very slow to play, in fact. And on top of that, the map, like Warframe, is scattered with little secrets and little objectives to complete for bits of gear. And here's the thing, I actually have more fun, and this is what I want to talk about, because I've been talking about how shit the multiplayer missions are and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've actually had a lot more fun with the game post-campaign, when that's all the content I've had to do, and I've just been able to just focus on mastering characters and leveling up characters and gaining more abilities and trying out new things. I've had more fun doing that than I had playing the entire campaign, and the reason why is because while the campaign has a few good fun moments, it's mostly kind of boring to play, and it's not a very good story, right? But post-campaign, you're just playing these same, and the reason why I didn't find these missions fun in the campaign is because the campaign is forcing you to play these missions.
Yeah.
But the problem is these missions aren't designed to be played with the lower level characters, right? They're designed to be played with higher level characters and with friends. And the problem is the campaign is forcing you to play these missions at a point in the game where you shouldn't be playing these missions. But as I've leveled up some characters and unlocked some new abilities, I've had a little bit more fun playing these missions because I've actually had a bit of fun going around and just taking mindlessly, by the way, taking out goods and completing these dumb objectives and going and getting rare gear and shit because I'm getting to play these characters. I'm getting to unlock more of the character set, and that is the big shame of this game, right?
So,
Can I just quickly
go
make
ahead.
this point, and then you can say what you're about to say. So the big shame of this game is in the characters, because when you finish the campaign, you have not even gotten anywhere near the potential of these characters, any of the characters in the game. You are nowhere near it. Like, you've leveled up, and you've got some good gear, and you've unlocked a few, you've unlocked a few skill trees, but there's 3 skill trees, all right? And the thing is, and I haven't got to this point myself, but I can tell you, I do know for a fact that it's about 10 hours of grinding with each character before you max them out and actually unlock the full potential of that character. And I can tell you right now, from a lot of videos that I've watched of people who have actually invested the time into this, right? They are so much more fun to play and so much more unique when you get to that point. The problem is they're gated behind a grind for each individual character post-campaign. All right? Now, I can tell you, I've barely played much post-campaign. I've forced myself to play a little bit of it, and I've picked one character. I picked Black Widow, right? So I was like, I'm going to level up Black Widow for a bit. We're going to unlock some abilities. We're going to unlock some stuff and see how different she plays. And I can tell you for a fact that I have had so much more fun playing Black Widow in that state, even though it's just a generic, boring mission structure. I've had so much more fun with the moment-to-moment gameplay loop than I had in the entirety of the campaign. All right, and this is what I mean by it's a split identity. Like, it can't do either sides right. Like, the problem is people are going to play this game for the campaign and for the single-player content.
Yeah,
they're
like
not going to put the hours to actually grind, to level up these characters, to actually play the way these characters have been designed to play. They're not going to put the time in. Why would they do that? Like, it's about 10 hours of grinding per character post campaign. That doesn't include any of the stuff you've unlocked during
previously.
the campaign. So it's like who's going to spend 50 hours grinding? Like, even I don't want to spend 50 hours, and I actually like live service looter shooter grinding games, but even I don't want to spend 50 hours leveling up these characters. It's just such a fucking crime. Okay, you can make your point now. Go ahead and say what you were going to say.
I don't know which of the 2 identities you would prefer that it committed to, but
I can answer that right now for you. If it was if it's an Avengers game, a single player focused campaign where you chop and change throughout the game, you play as different Avengers in different missions, but it's a single player focused game. I can tell you that right now.
I'm the same. So you like those Destiny style?
I love Destiny.
I'm a little indifferent on them. I enjoy playing Destiny, but I prefer Halo, Bungie's other series, much more than Destiny. In fact, I prefer the 343 developed Halo games more than Destiny. But that is just me. I hope that is not blasphemous to many people. But
blasphemous to me. How dare you? But the thing with live service games, and I want to point this out. So this is games like, before you continue, games like Warframe, Division, games like Destiny, right? The games that do this right, pretending Anthem doesn't exist. The games that do it right, they're not designed to be a game that you experience and then you move on. They're designed to be they're designed as hobby games, right? Like, I played Destiny. They're designed to be games you go back to every week and play. and that's what they desperately want for Avengers.
Yes.
But like they're hobby games, you know. Destiny is like one of those games that you just religiously play, and you know it's like your hobby. You know, same with Warframe. You know, I went from playing Destiny to a bit to playing Warframe to a bit to playing Division for a bit. You know, and out of those three experiences, I prefer Destiny as that's my favorite one. Even now, Destiny 2 is so fucking good. Such a good game now, you know. But anyway, I just want to point out that the big difference here between what Halo and Destiny is. But yeah, I know what you're saying. But see, it's not your thing, you're saying. It's not your cup of tea.
It's not my thing. I prefer to have games be an emotionally investing experience, much like if I was to watch a film or read a book or watch a television series or stuff like that. It's an interactive movie or an interactive TV show. I'm much more
you can get invested in characters. You can get kind of invested in the emotional journey and their kind of character arc and
precisely exactly. And if the gameplay is immensely fun on top of that, then that's perfect.
So it's a win-win.
Even if it's something silly and cartoonish like Super Mario or Crash Bandicoot, it's like that is a linear set of varied levels where you do different things in each level, and it has a nice little story to pull it along as well. Because I play so many different games, I have Xbox, I have PlayStation, I have Nintendo, I have PC, but it's a bit of a shitbox, so I need to fucking fix that.
You just sort that shit out.
But yeah,
I play Resident Evil 3 in first person.
Yeah, but like every time there is a big budget AAA game from an esteemed developer, I'm gonna have an interest in it, even if I don't go around to buy it. For each console, I can amass dozens, if not hundreds, of games. I don't have, like, for example, we made that joke about when we were talking about Animal Crossing, that it's rare that I even get a single game to go over 100 hours, let alone 2. That's what type of gamer I am. These grinding looter shooters like Destiny, Warframe, Division, they don't accommodate for the way I like to play, because they require so much more game time that I'm willing to give over. So I think Avengers would be a much, much better game if it was structured like 2018's God of War. Like this is Crystal Dynamics. This is the developers of the Tomb Raider series. And for example, if you look at
we all know how Tomb Raider fans feel about that.
Yeah, but like when you play those scripted campaign missions, that essence, that DNA of what made the last Tomb Raider trilogy so good is there. And I'm like, can we just have a game that is this? I want this.
It's very there is some very Uncharted-esque type moments as well. Like the bit where kind of like Hulk and Iron Man are kind of having a bit of a fucking fist fight on the Chimera, and then you play as Kamala Khan, and you've got to kind of like navigate through that like outside part of the Chimera, and it's a bit like cinematic, and there's like a big set piece that kind of happens there. Like that's kind of cool. And like that's where the game really shines. Like I was genuinely invested in what was going on, even though I didn't like the story that much. I was invested in what was going on because there's those little moments. And this is my theory. I think this game started development as a single player Tomb Raider type game. It started out development that way. And then Square Enix decided to come in and say, hey, we want to jump in on this looter shooter market, this live service market. So let's make this that game. And I think Avengers is the wrong IP for this game. And it's actually even showing, you know, like we're seeing it already. The player base has dropped for this game already. And the reason why is because even post-game, you know, in all looter shooter games, you have an end game, right? In Destiny, your end game is doing the raids. It's, you know, completing those weekly to daily objectives and getting that high level gear, getting those weapons. Destiny's all about a game. These looter shooter games are all about collecting, right? It's all about collecting weapons, collecting gear. You know, that's the end game. That's the end game gameplay loop grind, right?
Yes.
This game doesn't have an end game. It's just pointless gear with a set character set. You don't even have different weapons or different ways to play the game. You just have different abilities, which are essentially just like in Batman Arkham, where you unlock different combos over time. That's all your unlock stuff is. But it's like, it's just that the gear is where this game fails so hard. If this game had a good gear system, I think it would, and a good end game, a good reason to grind for that gear, but also a good end game point, then I think it would be more fun to play. As it stands right now, there's only a few locations and only a few mission types. There's nothing that stands out. There's nothing that makes it worth playing, you know? And that's where this game kind of falls flat, is in its end game. That's where it falls flat as a looter shooter, is in its gear and end game, post-campaign end game kind of stuff. And where it falls flat in the story is the fact that it's a live service game, and also it's not a particularly well-written story.
See, for Destiny, even though a lot of people would put in that extra hours grinding for the best gear and stuff like that, I kind of find that a bit superfluous once the campaign is finished, because I'm like, the spark that I played it for is lost, and this commits the cardinal sin on top of that by even messing that up, because now that I've finished the campaign, I'm like, all right, there's stuff with Monica that's unlocked now. Each character has their own
they have their like
strand,
mission chains,
stuff like that. Once those are done, I don't think I'll be touching this game until Spider-Man comes out.
Also,
but then I'll have a PS5
and also Spider-Man will be out. You can play Spider-Man again and also play Miles Morales. So you know, I will say one thing. I will say that, like, what were you just talking about?
Oh, that post-campaign grind in looter shooters
is it's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone. It doesn't. It doesn't scratch the itch. It doesn't have that spark that I initially played the game for.
Looter shooters aren't for everyone. You know, it's not.
And that's fine.
Like, and you know, like, that's the thing. They're trying to target looter shooter audiences, and the problem is looter shooter audiences are also sick of looter shooter games because there's too many of them. And it's like Destiny started this whole, like, I know Destiny's not the first looter shooter game or like the first thing, but Destiny's the first to start this whole MMO light genre, and then that's developed into this live service MMO light genre, which then these live service elements have then gone into so many other games, but all games are trying to replicate Destiny, and they can't do it. Like, Anthem was desperately trying to replicate Destiny, and it's a terrible game. And guess what? EA abandoned that game quicker than anything. Like, and that's my worry with this game, because they said that this game was going to have ongoing story content, and it's going to have ongoing stuff that's all free of charge, which is actually one thing I think that's different to, obviously, Destiny with Destiny's expansion packs. But you've also got to understand that Destiny is now also a free-to-play game. And so all free-to-play games have expansions and
that you
things
pay
like
for,
And also, like, what's the difference between Destiny doing expansions and The Sims doing expansions? You know, like, The Sims have a million more expansions than Destiny has had across its entire life, and they charge, like, those expansions aren't cheap.
No,
you know what I mean? And like, so what's the difference between Sims doing it and Destiny doing it? There isn't any difference. But the thing here is, like, the story content's actually pretty good. And occasionally the expansions actually go on sale for a really decent price. So like with Destiny, I just wait for the expansions to be on sale at a good price, and then I'll buy it, and then I'll play it and have a good time with it, you know. Here we're getting all free content, so that's great. But that means nothing if the story content is just as shit as this game is. And I want to say, like, I do want to add that I think, like I said, there is a good game here. And I think moving into the future, I think this game has potential. I think there is a lot of potential here. They need to really fix... Basically, they need to fix the fundamental systems of how gear affects gameplay, but also they need to fix the balancing issues that are going on But what I really want from this game is when they introduce more heroes and more story content, I want that story content to actually be good and actually be worth my time playing. You know, I want more of these cinematic story moments that we've had. And I don't want these new story content to just be like a story event that just revolves around new locations, but it's the same multiplayer looter shooter formula. I want more cinematic story content. You know, Destiny does it. There's no reason why this game can't do it. So I'm really hoping that moving into the future, Square Enix spend the time really polishing this game and really making it worth playing, but also the new heroes they launch, the new story content is actually worth your time. Because like I feel like and I know you're a trophy hunter. I know you like your trophies.
Yeah.
The thing about this game, and this is, would you platinum this game?
Absolutely.
And when I say platinum this game,
not.
exactly, I thought you were going to say that. Because guess what? You could only ever platinum the base game. You are never going to be able to platinum this game because it's a live service ongoing story game. There's always going to be new trophies. So you know, you might spend the hours in platinum and be like, yes. And then next thing you know, next month there's a fucking new story content. There's like 20 new trophies to get. You know, this game is not one of those games. And I'm sure people out there are going to platinum it and going to have a good time doing it. But again, I don't really give a shit about trophies anyway. We all know this. We discussed this at length with The Last of Us. But you know, I just don't think this game's worth putting that time in, you know, and what I want from this game moving forward is content that's worth it, because quite frankly, you know, I don't even recommend this game if you want to play the story content. Like straight up, I just say no, go play fucking something else, because this game is not worth your time right now, even for the standard mission content, because all the campaign is you play a little bit as Kamala Khan, and she does a few bits and pieces, and then your main goal is to reform the Avengers, and then you do that, and then you go fight MODOK, and that's the end of the game. There's no actual story there.
No.
You know, like there's a bit of character drama, but there's not really a story. So I want them, you know, when they introduce Hawkeye, like, and they kept talking about how they need to have a villain that's big enough to take on the Avengers, and MODOK just has an army of robots. Like,
yeah,
what? You know, but anyway.
I actually do like how they incorporated MODOK into this game, though, because if you'd seen him from comic books or television cartoon series or Marvel vs. Capcom, even, you look at him and you go, how do I take this man seriously? Because he's just a giant head with appendages sticking out the sides in a little hovercraft ship. But they actually do make him work in this game. I look at him and go, okay, that works. That's good
I think
enough.
Yeah, for what he is in this particular story, he works.
Yes.
Fine. Again, if the story was better, he would also be better, I'm sure. But I do like how that character does go on that bit of a journey, and it turns out really he's not even really the villain per se. You know, he's more just like being manipulated by Monica. Yeah. You know, so she's like the villain, and then, you know, there's that whole thing, and then I can't remember, does Monica die? Monica just dies, doesn't she? Doesn't MODOK just kill her? But then she comes back at the end?
Yeah, and I'm like, is that a clone or is it the same woman? I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
It's odd.
We'll find out in future DLC, I guess. But talking of the future, I do think this game has a bright future if Square Enix commits to this game and commits to making it a better game and actually commits to making story content worth playing.
Yes,
I genuinely do think that this game has the potential to actually be, in a year's time, actually worth paying the money for and actually worth playing when we've got some more story content, more heroes to play, and maybe even more variety in the post-game end-game structure. I think this game would be worth putting time into, but as it stands right now, I don't think it is.
I'd say for now, it's worth maybe a rental or borrowing it from a friend or stuff like that. But honestly, unless they say that Spider-Man and the uh, the Hawkeye stuff will be story content that echoes a lot of the same missions that we really love, the very cinematic set piece missions from the campaign. Then I would say, yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't even really talked that much about them themselves, but there's really no need to.
Well,
We haven't even really talked
them.
much about the story. It's just basically like, yeah, the game's just reform the Avengers, MODOK's the villain, and you play as Kamala Khan for like 60% of it. That's all you need to know.
But I actually did really like Kamala Khan as a character.
Yeah, no, she's a great character. This is what I was saying earlier. She's like the best character in the game because she's the only character in the game. All the others are just one-dimensional blank slates. Actually, that's what I want. Please write the characters better in future DLC so we can actually give some of these characters some personality. That would be great. I would really appreciate that. Also, do more stuff with Thor. Thor's barely in this game.
Joe Helst is a great character.
Yes.
Kamala's father.
Oh yeah, what a great character.
He was his best part.
Do you know what's actually I like about Kamala Khan is Kamala Khan was annoying and cringy in the beta, but actually in the game she's all right. I like her. She's a great character.
Her spirit, especially at the opening of the game on A-Day, that hyper fan, fan gushing personality that she has, sounds like, oh, you play as a Avengers super fan, and you're like, oh crap, it's going to be one of those like annoying, nerdy characters where you're like, games. Oh look, we're making a character that relates to you, a super fan, and it's just cringy, just annoying character. You just go, oh, shut up. But I loved how I found Kamala's attitude and personality immediately from the start of the game very infectious and endearing.
I mean, there is still a couple of cringy bits, especially that bit where she like stands up to those two like bully fans, and she says her little piece, and it's just like, okay, all right, okay, settle the fuck down. But like for the most part, I think it's good. Like that actual scene where she meets Thor is actually, I think, a very genuine, wholesome scene.
Yes, I agree. That was a great scene.
And I do like at the end when she encounters Cap and Black Widow, that's like a really cool scene. It's not wholesome, but it's like really cool. And like there's a good like one part I actually haven't even mentioned, but I really fucking loved was actually the stealth part with Kamala, like towards the start of the game, where you like have to like get through the park. It's not a combat section, it's a stealth section, and that was a really cool section. I actually enjoyed it. It's very cinematic. It was really cool, and I actually also liked that earlier part of the game because it was very linear. It was very much a case of you play as Kamala and you've got to get from point A to point B. And there's really not much leeway away from that one set path. And then after that, it kind of like each area just opens up a little bit, and this is before you get to the part of the game where it starts just shoehorning in multiplayer missions disguised as campaign missions. But it starts to open up a little bit, especially when you go to, is it in Texas? I don't know where it is, but wherever the Chimera is, when you get to that area, there's actually like the area's less linear and it's a bit more open, and it's not like open like it's still very much on a set path, but it's now more open. There's more areas to explore and things, and I thought that was fine. But I think the very set, this is what you need to do. This is your linear path missions are where this game really shines. And I actually really like the Black Widow mission too, where they reintroduced Black Widow. I thought that was actually a really cool mission.
Yep, I like that mission too.
I think the best this game gets though is A-Day, just in terms of like everything.
Spectacle.
You got the spectacle. It's a very linear 20-30 minutes, but you also play as each different character. You go from one to a character to another. There's different scenarios leading into that boss fight, and I think that is literally the peak of this game. I think from there it's peaked, and that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I do want to quickly mention this game's future, because this game does have a future, apparently.
Yes.
Assuming they don't abandon it like Anthem. We do have some more characters coming out. And I had it open and I've closed it. God damn it, hold on. I'm just going to search Avengers DLC again, just bear with me. So the next character to come out, obviously the player base is already dropped, which is not a good sign. But
No.
the player base, the upcoming DLC that's coming out, we got some DLC coming out this month, apparently. And this will be the Hawkeye DLC with Clint Barton and Kate Bishop. And Kate Bishop is, I believe, is voiced by, oh fuck, what's her name? I forgot her name now. She's voiced by Aloy.
What's
her name?
Ashley Birch.
What's her name? Yeah, Ashley Birch. That's it. Yeah, yeah. I can't believe I
Fun
couldn't
fact:
remember. She's
I
fucking
did not
Chloe
know.
Price.
I did not know that she was in Last of Us 2 until after the podcast we were on, because I had replayed the game a couple more times to get most of the trophies, and I got the platinum. The only trophy I'm missing is to beat the game on Grounded, which is maybe later. But it got that.
She's Mel.
It got to that scene where Mel says to Abby, "You're a piece of shit. You always have been." And what was that line? It was that line where she says, "You think you can convince Owen of your little game by doing right by these kids, but like he might fall for your little game, but I don't." It was that line. I've heard that voice before, and I went, "Oh shit, that's Aloy." It's
Aloy. It's Chloe Price. They're iconic roles. But yeah, so she plays Kate Bishop, I believe. And so that's some DLC that's going to be coming out late October in a story event called Taking Aim. However, Clint isn't coming out until November. So apparently this is going to be like split between both. This narrative is going to be split between both characters. So we're going to be playing as both Hawkeyes throughout November and October and November. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, it seems like the basic plot line seems to be that both Clint and Kate are investigating what happened to Nick Fury after A-Day, and they stumble across this project and also Clint has disappeared. So, and apparently it's also going to deal with Monica as well. So, it seems like they're moving towards that more what I want to see, which is more story-focused content. So I hope they deliver on that. And they have also confirmed that Black Panther will also be in the game as well.
Yes.
Will be a post-launch hero that's coming out soon. Which they were going to show off at one of the war tables, but that also happened around the same time that Chadwick Boseman passed away. So they decided to kind of hold off on showing that, obviously. But he's going to be coming at some point. I don't know when. They haven't really confirmed when that is going to be. I'm assuming if they're releasing one character each month, I'm assuming probably December. But again, like I don't really know too much on that. But yeah, he's going to be coming. And they're the only confirmed characters beyond Spider-Man. So we do know Spider-Man is coming. We don't know exactly when he's coming yet, but it will be early 2021. To PlayStation players, because it's Sony exclusive, which people keep assuming it's because Sony own the rights to the character. That's actually not true at all. Sony own the film rights to the character. But people keep going, why is everyone mad about this? You know, Sony own the rights. It's like, no, you got to understand that Marvel Games is more in line with the rights when it comes to the comic books, and Sony have done a deal with the section of Marvel that deals with these games to make Spider-Man Sony exclusive. They don't own this character. It's like the Spider-Man game from Insomniac Games, right?
Yeah.
Like, that would have been a deal. Like, Insomniac Games is a Sony developer, but they would have done a deal with Marvel to use Spider-Man. Like, and
Like,
obviously because it's Insomniac, it's it's PlayStation exclusive. It's not anything to do with Sony owning the character because they don't own the character.
Hell, since I think it was only just after Spider-Man released, Insomniac were actually a second party developer. They were independent. So not only, so you might say, oh, Insomniac have always made games for PlayStation ever since Disruptor in 1996, I think it was. And I'm like, yes, that's true, but they've also made that Fuse game for Xbox 360.
Okay, yeah.
They made Sunset Overdrive on the Xbox One, which is a very good game for me. I really love that game. Oh, yeah,
that's right. They did make that too. Yeah, no,
yeah.
Okay,
in fact, I like playing Sunset Overdrive now, knowing that that's kind of the genesis for what became Spider-Man.
Yeah. So yeah, so they do make things outside.
Yeah. It's only since Spider-Man has come out that Insomniac has been owned by Sony.
Interesting. Interesting. But then beyond that, though, there's no confirmation on any of these characters, but there has been some leaks. So take all this with a grain of salt. Ant-Man is going to be a playable character at some point. I'm not 100% sure if that will be the Hank Pym version of Ant-Man that we see in the game. Because Hank Pym did mention in the campaign that if he does it again, he's actually going to die if he does it again.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be his version of Ant-Man. We're going to get Captain Marvel at some stage. We got Doctor Strange in there, who's also going to be in the next Spider-Man movie. Just a little sidebar on that one there. We got Falcon, potentially Marvel. So there's a lot of like well-known characters, but also a lot of like kind of second list characters like Marvel, Quake, who is Quake's probably more in the public eye, the general public eye now, in the sense that people who watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will know who Quake is. Scarlet Witch, obviously, She-Hulk, Vision, War Machine, Wasp, and Winter Soldier. So these are some potential characters that could be kind of brought in later on down the line. Again, assuming that Square Enix stick to this game, which who knows. But that's kind of the future of this game. But yeah, I think this game is okay. That's all I really have to say about it.
Well, what I would have to say about it is that when this game commits to being a cinematic game in the same style that we saw from the last couple of Tomb Raider games, God of War, and stuff like that, it's good, great, fantastic even. If only the game was that, because it's buried by a bunch of stuff that I just don't care for.
Yeah. Also, it is worth pointing out that they will also be releasing a next generation version for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X as well. With, I'm assuming, hopefully might be a free upgrade from one version to another.
I'm pretty sure the Xbox version has the optimized for Series X label on it. So it technically is an Xbox Series X game as well. So it'll run 4K and all that stuff the moment you put it into and install it on your Xbox Series X. The PS4 version, I've heard, will come with a free upgrade to PS5.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens with that again, I guess. Another thing, just quickly, I want to mention that we haven't mentioned it all, and I just want to keep this brief because we're wrapping it up, but
yes.
It's the hero challenge cards. So each hero has, and this is kind of where the live service element comes in. You know, you've got like your gear or whatever, and then you kind of progress through that by completing daily and weekly objectives, that kind of thing. The interesting thing now, currently, the one big top point of discussion beforehand was whether there would be both not just a hero challenge card, but a paid hero challenge card as well, because when you look at the UI, all the challenge card stuff is up the top part of that display, but then there's this big gap down the bottom, unless it's skins. And this game does have a marketplace, by the way. You can actually purchase skins and emotes and all of that kind of thing using microtransactions. But there was this big talk about whether there would be a paid version of a hero challenge card as well, because why would you design a UI to have that much space if you're not going to do anything with it? Now, as since launch, they haven't done anything with that space. They haven't included that. But like with a lot of video game publishers these days, it's entirely possible that they're holding off on something like that until later on, and then they'll bring it in. So I would just keep an eye out, because that is a pretty shitty business practice, if you ask me. I'm not against microtransactions in general. It just depends on what those microtransactions are for and how the game is designed, because a lot of games these days are designed around forcing you into purchasing microtransactions, rather than just microtransactions being these just cool little things that you could just get if you wanted to. So it's like this kind of bullshit thing. But yeah, it's I don't know if they're going to do it, but it's something worth looking in, thinking about, as a lot of other publishers have put in sneaky microtransaction stuffs after launch. So
yeah,
just
which
keep an eye out.
Despise.
Yeah, just keep an eye out for that. Like, what happened to the good old days of just having some, like, fucking paid skins, or, like, you know, just having, like, DLC? You know? What happened to that? Why do we not get DLC anymore? Like, you know, I mean, season passes have become absolutely outrageous, but, like, you know, like, back a decade ago, a season pass would give you some bonus story content.
Yeah.
For, you know, like, what happened to those days?
And even if they were purely cosmetic stuff, like the DLC for Little Big Planet games, stuff like that, Little Big Planet does not have microtransactions. It has a marketplace where it'll take you to the PlayStation Store, and you buy each individual costume as DLC. It's not microtransactions. That is about as close to microtransactions that I would allow. As soon as you start
it's
going,
DLC. It's DLC that you're choosing to purchase.
Precisely.
Where a lot of microtransactions are based around this mobile game culture of manipulating you into purchasing them. You know, Assassin's Creed is why I just refuse to support Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed games are solely designed to force you into, especially the newer ones, especially since Origins, they are designed to force you into buying these microtransactions that make your life easier while playing the game. They've been doing it for years in Assassin's Creed, but ever since Origins, ever since they completely changed the gameplay structure of Assassin's Creed, Assassin's Creed is a single player, emphasis on that word, single player game that is designed to manipulate you into buying boosters and shit. What a world we live in. That's all I have to say about that. I'm not playing the new Assassin's Creed. I didn't play the last one. I have no intention of playing Assassin's Creed again until it's an actual Assassin's Creed game. Until then, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need to play fucking... Also, fuck Ubisoft. Just fuck Ubisoft. Did you also hear that there's going to be assassins in Watch Dogs, whatever the new Watch Dogs game is?
Watch Dogs Legion.
Yeah. Why is there assassins in Watch Dogs but not in Assassin's Creed? What is going on? Can we, like, just put... I mean, there was this big reveal in the most recent trailer that assassins are actually going to be in Valhalla. Why is this a reveal? Why is this a big thing? How has Assassin's Creed gotten to the point where
there are no
assassins actually being in the game is this big reveal? Like, this is just wild. Like, stop making other games with the label Assassin's Creed and just make an Assassin's Creed game. You know what I mean? Like, fucking hell. Anyway, that's my little rant about Ubisoft. But you know what? I think it's time to wrap this up. And thanks, Jacob, for coming on. Thanks for coming and hanging out and talking about video games and shit. It's great to have you back.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, I like how you had that very delayed response then. There's like a little pause in between.
Because I was trying to hit it, but your dialogue is a bit crackly on my end, so I'm like,
That's okay. That's fine. We're wrapping up anyway. It doesn't matter. As always, you can find us over on Spotify. If you're not listening to us already on there, all the episodes are up available on Spotify. You can go back through the back catalogue, listen through to that. If you're listening to this on YouTube, then you can also like the podcast and subscribe to my channel where I upload this. And you'll get some new content from me besides the podcast, hopefully soon. But yeah, if you are listening to this on YouTube and you don't know that we're on Spotify, click the link in the description below and you can head on over to Spotify. As always, socials are all in the description below, assuming I remember to do it, because I'm pretty sure every episode I say that and I forget to do it. But yeah, that's it. We've only got a couple of episodes left for the year. We've got a bit of a surprise. Lewin is back in the next episode, and we've got a bit of a surprise for you. So if you've been a long time listener to the podcast, you're going to find next episode very interesting. So I'll leave that as a surprise. And yeah, we've only got a couple of episodes left after that, and we're nearly finished the year. It's been a wild year. But yeah, that'll do, I think. I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and thanks to Jacob. And we'll see you guys around next time.
All right, see you later.
See you later.